right. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to our chat about creativity, how to boost creativity to gain more inspiration and maybe help us be better at what we do. Maybe a little bit of creativity couldn't hurt us. I think I've always sort of fallen into that bucket of, oh, I'm just not that person. I don't consider myself a creative by nature. I see all of these people that just seem to whip out a pen and make magic happen. But I believe that that's a limiting belief because creativity comes in so many shapes and forms, and how we apply that creativity, I think, becomes really important. And speaking of people who can whip out a pen and do something, Learn Something New Wednesday, it's in October, so I know it's a ways away, but I'm really excited because I got Rachel Burnham, and she is like the queen of sketchnoting. And so she's going to do a Learn Something New Wednesday for us on sketchnoting. So I think that's going to be super fun. Okay, so now, question on the table. What does it take for us to shift our mindset from that limiting belief of, oh, I'm just not this creative person, to thinking that we can be creative? What's it going to take to make that happen? And what's it going to take to make our creative juices kind of bubble up? And I have a couple of exercises that we're going to do today. And I also have this book that I'm going to give away today too. I found I had extras on my bookshelf, so I thought, this is a fun one. So Heather says, number one, stop saying that you're not creative. There we go. So if we can take that out of our vocabulary, I think that would be an important way to go about it.
I think that people need to embrace what appeals to them. So I know I love fun fonts and I'm attracted to color and I love infographics. I do honestly feel like I'm a creative person. I've done a lot of scrapbooking and card making. So all of those things appeal to me. So it's just like lean into it and embrace it. You love those things. So technically you do have a creative aspect to you when you shop, or like when a book cover appeals to you, there's a reason it appeals to you. It's kind of tapping into your creative side and what you actually enjoy.
I agree. I think if you can build on that, then your creativity blossoms. Right, Kelly?
I'm a big proponent of just letting go of the fear of failure and risk, because the creativity process is full of failure. I have some really bad paintings that I've done, and then I've had some really beautiful ones, and that some work and some don't, and you can just paint over it. Same with making jewelry and gardening. If the plant doesn't look good there, well, then move it, right? I'm with Carol that there is part of creativity is figuring out what you like. And then why do you like it? What is the color or the structure or how somebody did it? And then doing that self-examination of why you like it, and then try to recreate it. It's amazing when you take somebody else's design. Now, I'm not saying commercially, but if you love somebody's PowerPoint, go see if you can create it, right? Do it again. That is an act of creativity. And then say, well, I like blue, I like green. Like, could I do this in a different color? Know that this is a low risk activity, that you are going to make something ugly. And then maybe next time it might look nice. But you have to go out there and try it.
I love that sentiment so much, and I wrote it down. The creativity process is full of failure. I think that is just the best statement, because it's absolutely true. Right. I know that I've failed on a number of things, and then maybe that something that comes out the end wasn't even close to what I was thinking about doing at the beginning. And that's kind of fun. Right? Mary, don't shame yourself for not being interested in doing PowerPoints. Maybe your creative interests are elsewhere. Absolutely. A lot of times we think we've got to fit into a certain niche or do a certain thing. You know what? That's just not our groove.
What I find interesting from a creativity thing is the idea that you have to come up with something unique, which I think is what a lot of people struggle with. I think that's probably highly unlikely. There's only 6 notes in music, but every piece of music always seems to sound a bit different. So I'm a big fan of the technique of bricolage, taking art and things from somewhere else and putting them together to create something new. And you can do the same thing with ideas. So a load of the stuff that I talk about is taking ideas from other places, reinterpreting them, changing them slightly. And so one thing I would always encourage people to do is to look at, well, what are the ideas that you like but don't quite make it, and what can you do to change them? That is a really good first step in terms of creativity. Being creative isn't coming up with something new. It's coming up with something which works for you. And it's about assembling all of the ideas that work in one place together.
And I think that goes to, Kelly, what you were talking about. Like if you saw somebody's PowerPoint that was really awesome and you wanted to see what can I do with that? I think a lot of times if we contacted the person and said, how did you do that? And then you can take that, run with that idea and make it your own. To Andrew's point, it's coming up with something that is different for you. I'm trying to keep up with the chat box with you guys today. Creativity could be imagining something new or innovative. An example would be to revise a process or methodology. You know what? That's a great point, JD. Do you want to carry that forward?
I guess where I was going was it doesn't necessarily have to be something like a design or a PowerPoint or a drawing or something like that. The creativity can be identifying something that can be used to improve a process, or looking at something in a new way or a new light.
I like that a lot because I you know what? I think that's another thing that compels us to think that we're not creative by nature because we're automatically thinking about creativity as an art form. When we think about creating different processes, that is also a creative process. That's an iterative process that can be very creative. Carol, getting out into nature can also inspire creativity. Colors, textures, plants, flowers. Absolutely. So Carol, is that something you do often?
Yes. So I'm not a huge summer person, so I don't find myself walking a lot in the heat of the summer, but I will go on an early morning walk or an evening walk. And I just try to just live in the moment. And like when the air feels fresh and it's on your skin, and I just try to look at things that I see like in my neighborhood or wherever I'm walking. I live in Illinois, so a lot of people plant these spring flowers in front of their houses and you see like these brilliant like purples and magentas. I'll snap a photo and like kind of save something like color that inspires me or something that I see that inspires me, and I'll kind of contemplate it later on why I liked it so much.
I'm with you. And I'm from Illinois too. I think, as you might know. Yes, it's here Illinois in the house. I think other, Midwestern and Eastern states are probably similar. We get so much winter. And then when spring starts to come through the snow and when the summer flowers finally start to bloom, you have almost a new appreciation for these colors that you haven't seen in like 6 months. I think that it does spark something. And I do that too, Carol, is I find myself taking pictures of things because I'm attracted to the color, not necessarily because I'm attracted to whatever that thing is. And so I think from a creativity perspective, if we followed our instincts, that might lead us to fuel whatever passion or whatever project that it is that we're trying to fuel.
On my phone, I created a photo album called Inspiration. And when I see something, I'll either, if you see it on a website and I'll do a screenshot, or if it's live in real life, I'll actually snap a photo and then I keep adding photos to that album in my phone. And then when I'm just looking for something nice to look at, I'll pull up that album and scroll through all the photos. So
I love that
it's
idea.
helpful.
I love that idea too.
I do that. I love to read too. And I go to the library or the bookstores and I do the same thing with book covers, because some book covers are just great. It's like a great font or a great color and it catches your eye. And I do that a lot. Connie, I love that you do that also.
Yes, I agree with you with the bookstore. I find book covers to be hugely fascinating. I thought I was the only one who thought that. So thank you, Carol. So Connie, you struggle with the difference between creativity of an artist versus creativity of a non-artist. You want to take me through your comment there?
I grew up my mother was an artist and a musician. She could draw anything, paint most anything. She could play most any instrument. And several of my sisters and brothers are just like that, and nephews and nieces. So I feel like I live in an artistic family, and I am not that way. My brain's like a computer. Accounting is easy for me. That's not what I do, but it's easy for me. Numbers and things like that were always easier. So I love to view art. And I guess that's where that book, Still Like an Artist, I like that concept because I love like the flowers. I take photographs. I literally have to see ideas and then build on those. I guess that is creativity, but I almost feel like I'm pretending to be an artist because I have lived with artists, true artists.
Well, and I like Jennifer's statement Give yourself a bit of a break. Creativity doesn't have to be a yes, no, path. It's a journey. And as JD expressed, I think we do think about creativity in this one very narrow definition, and we don't let ourselves think about, the creativity behind numbers, the creativity behind computer programming, the creativity behind science. There's a lot of different avenues there that we can take when it comes to expressing these creative ventures. Heather, I tend to draw a blank on what to create. I'm very good at doing crafts and figuring out what to do. Right? It's like, that's why in the email, I put in the paint by numbers link. Some of you who might be my age, in your late 50s, you may be thinking paint by numbers. You think about this little rudimentary cat or dog or something like that. I have to thank Chris Coladonato for this. The paint by numbers now are almost Picasso-like. I mean, they're beautiful. And even though it's number oriented, it's leading you down this path. You still sort of have this choice between, where do I want to go? And perhaps what colors might I want to use? Do I want to adjust this or move that? And it still gives you that creative bent, but yet at the end, you still come out with something, right? And so I think it's a great way to sort of kick off that creative, mojo, if you will. Now, Maureen, didn't you mention a book earlier here?
Yeah, I mentioned 2 books, and the one I mentioned at the last session as well, it's called Orbiting the Giant Hairball by Gordon MacKenzie. He ended up being one of the kind of founders of shoebox greetings for Hallmark cards. And he just talks about, if you ask young kids, like, who thinks they're creative or who's artistic, who wants to be an artist, like, a lot of hands go up. But then the older that they get, like, the fewer hands that go up, because the message is sent that, well, creativity, that's not worth, or artistic pursuits, that's not viable, like, that's not important, kind of thing. But then the other is, when somebody said looking at things from a different angle, it's How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci by Michael Gelb. And so one of the aspects is around physically looking at something from a different perspective, like going somewhere else and seeing it differently. But there's a lot of great ideas in there that were inspired by what the author believes Leonardo da Vinci was, all the different parts of his mind. It may also have to do more with allowing ourselves and our minds to be still every once in a while, so that we can let things kind of percolate, as opposed to always having to, like, produce.
And let's talk about the creative process. When do you feel creative? For me, I agree with you, Maureen. It's when I'm doing nothing, or what would be a nothing task, like doing the dishes. All of a sudden, I get a thought about something that I was thinking about earlier during the day. What activities do you guys do that seems to allow creativity to flow through? In the shower. Thank you, Kelly. I wasn't going to say it because I thought that might be TMI for some people, but I agree. When I'm in the shower, it just seems like I have these ideas.
But we can't take long showers in California any longer. So
we probably shouldn't in general anyway, right?
But I find that, you can get that in the swimming pool, the sound of rushing water, like when we go hiking and we go stop at a creek, and the whole family loves to just sit by the creek and listen to the water running, and you can let your mind wander, and the creative ideas come to me during that time. So there's something for me, there's something that water seems to have that.
There are few things I do to actually get inspired, which is switching to what I do automatically. For instance, when I drive to my office or when I go to restaurants, listen to music, do it in a different way. Try to find new routes to go to the same places, meet new people completely different to your friends, or listen to new music that you never heard before. Things that will spark like, I never saw, or I never hear something like that. That feels like, or it sounds a little bit like. So you start connecting things, and it expands your capacity to think or imagine. Even when you go to a restaurant, and then the food, it's a completely new restaurant, and the food is different, and it shows you that you can mix new things when cooking, completely different styles, to actually feed my brain and find new options. If I keep doing the same or stuck in some styles, then I'm blocked for a while. Book or find time to try new things, because we barely find the time to meet our friends, right? So how can I meet new people, or to go to a restaurant. I want to go to the ones I like, or the music. So you need to find the time to do that things in a different way.
You mentioned music and Kelly mentioned water, but those are very audio focused sounds, kind of drive a creativity mindset or lead you to think differently. Jason put it in here. Anything other than what I was doing.
Exactly.
Whatever it was, go in a completely different direction, whatever that may be. So Jason, do you have an example of that? How do you use that?
Oh, it's anything. I just walk away. So if I'm supposed to be producing a video or something for a course and I can't get like, where do I want to start with this? I will go and do something else or work on some reports or something, or get up, walk around, just take my brain away from focusing on that creative thing that I need to do. And then ultimately, something will just trigger in the back of my head, and then an idea will pop in, and I'll just, then I'll be hyper focused on it for the next 3 hours.
When we step away, we allow the clutter to fall away.
I think if we focus on it too much, that sometimes can create a block.
Right, that forest through the trees.
Right.
Saying, yeah. And Mary, I'm with you. So Mary, do you want to talk to me about how journaling helps you?
Well, I'm a writer to begin with. So anytime I'm going to put pen to paper, that's going to make a huge difference for me. I just read Heather's comment, and yes, the act of writing is also art, and it's taking thoughts and making them visible. And that is visual art, which never occurred to me. Thank you, Heather, wherever you are in there. Sorry, I'm going to stop and cry now, because that's just like, oh my God. Anyhow, journaling. Yeah. So I'll write down, whatever I'm thinking, or, hey, the sky is blue, the grass is green, the birds are singing, blah, blah, blah. Not thinking about what I'm trying to be thinking about, just thinking about what I'm feeling in this moment. We recently changed CEOs, and all of us are not really happy about that. And I was journaling my feelings about that, and knowing that I need to get past my baggage with this person, and having absolutely no idea how. And as I'm journaling, an idea comes out of left field, and I'm like, oh my God, I should try that. It worked when I was dealing with other baggage, and presto changeo, I'd say 80% of the baggage is gone now. But I'm a writer, so writing is how I figure things out anyway.
There is something to be said about that. A few of the creativity books and articles and such that I've read over the years say something about like brain dumping, or just taking a moment, picking a topic, and just writing something off the top of your head, just to get ideas out, just starting your day with 10 minutes and just writing stuff down and see what tends to flow out of your brain. So Andrew, what did you post here?
So the conversation was about doing something else. If you're doing another activity, then you by associate with the other activity the thing that you've hidden away that you're not thinking of, and the evidence is there, which does confirm it. They've done brain scans and the whole piece, and there's a proper scientific study that supports it. So you can say science says that doing something else will make you more creative. It's nice to be able to prove it with
right.
Paper, for example. Do you know what I mean? And the other thing I would also pick up on is the conversation about writing. I blog every day. I write a blog post every day and publish them. And there's a couple of reasons for it. So firstly, by publishing them, then I set an expectation on myself that I have to produce them. But secondly, what I find is that it's like turning on a tap. I think it was Neil Gaiman who described it, or possibly Stephen King, says that the first 1,000 words are rubbish. But it's like when you first turn on the tap, the cold water is not cold until it's come a mile down the road, kind of thing. And that's what happens. So I'll write a blog post and it will be terrible. And then the second blog post I write that day will be better. But then I'll go back and edit the first one 3 days later, and we'll understand exactly what I'm trying to do. And that's where the creativity comes from. It's not a once and done thing. People say I'm creative. No, I'm not. I just work on thinking about other people's ideas and how to get them together.
Right. You've built a habit.
Exactly. I wonder which podcast you listen to, Kelly.
Women in L&D talking to each other or something like that.
Yeah, women talking about learning.
I just found it. I mean, it was featured on Twitter, and I was like, how did I not know about? And then Shannon, you were on it, and I was jealous, Shannon, that you created a core group of supportive women in learning that you talk to every week. I'd love to have that kind of network and support. I think we all face so many challenges at work. Stress of affects my ability to be creative, and I need other people to help me, especially in L&D. We do help each other, and I love that about L&D.
The podcast, I'll just put the link in the chat because people are asking. It's Women Talking About Learning. It's there to amplify women's voices because women are underrepresented in senior roles in learning and development. So any of the women here, if you've got a topic that you want to talk about or you want to find a topic and speak to somebody else about it, then let me know and we can sort out recording you.
That's another creative outlet, isn't it? Is to talk about something maybe that you're not familiar with or maybe somewhat familiar with. The creativity behind this coffee chat, not this particular topic, but the coffee chats in general, is that it forces me to go out and do some research about that topic, right? So the productivity chat last week, I had to go out, I had to do some research, I had to read some stuff. That forces me to think differently about a particular topic rather than me coming in cold with some assumptions. I think if you build this habit of doing something that's going to free your brain, and it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning, right? It could be at any time. Irby, I think you said the part of your brain that says, I can't do this, goes to bed around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and then it picks up in the morning. It's about knowing your energy. Would you say that, Irby?
The thing that I'm kind of working against me is I'm a Navy veteran, the military and stuff. And so there was this kind of a stay between the lines are our friends kind of condition where I tend not to deviate from the task at hand. And more often in my role, I'm a project manager. Anything I can do to kind of make my brain kind of go off on a tangent benefits the creativity, I think.
We just let the brain flow, I think, is kind of some of the messaging that we're getting here. And I agree with you, Irby. A lot of times I just can't think about it anymore and I just have to sleep on it. And I think there's something to be said about sleeping on it, to allow yourself to think differently when the morning comes around. Heather, does anyone else try to remember something you saw or heard and forgot about it later? All the time. Every time I enter a room, it feels like lately. And I try to write down all the ideas or things to check out when they're in my mind so I can refer back to them later for a deep dive. Do you want to talk deeper about that? Or does anyone else feel the same way? Go ahead, Mary.
I do the same thing Heather does. I keep a notepad by my bed because I will have an idea as I'm falling asleep. And I'm like, I got to grab that because it will not be in my brain in the morning. And I know a lot of people now, they put the notes on their phones. I am a boomer. I'm a dinosaur. And yeah, I've got a smartphone, but it's smarter than I am, so I much prefer pen and paper. There's something about putting pen to paper and actually writing stuff that connects things in my brain.
Yeah, me too. There's something about the feeling of using Post-it notes that I think enhance creativity. It's the colors, it's the stickiness, it's the ability to move them around. It's very touchy for me, and I'm all about if I can touch it, then I'm good. And my daughter often when we're in stores, she'd be like, Mom, stop touching stuff. I like the softness or whatever the texture is. And I think that makes me think about different things. All right, so activity time. So if you have a piece of paper, and it doesn't matter what size paper, if you got a piece of paper in front of you, 25 circles is what I'm looking for. 5 rows of 5 circles, like that. And so now you've got 25 circles in front of you. Here's what I'd like you to do, is I would like you to turn those circles into something. You have 1 minute to see how many of those circles you can turn into something. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Hold them up. Let's see what we got. Oh, Carol went with designs inside her circles. Awesome. Let's see. Gloria. Oh, there we go. Gloria did the same thing. We got designs. We got happy faces. I left one alone and called it a rock. Nice. I've got sunshine, sun from Kelly, and people. Where'd you end up with, Connie? I didn't even think about sunshine, says Mary. When I did this exercise originally, I got through, I think, maybe 10 myself. Because I went kitty, cat, doggy. I went animals first. Kitty, cat, doggies, rabbits. I put ears on all of the circles. That was the way that I thought about it. Just to kind of break into your creative thought that something as simple, how many iterations of a circle can we come up with? But I love all of the different approaches. I love that, you went with let's create a design with it within each circle. There are no rules. So excellent. Good job. Are you guys ready for another one? All right, here we go. Now let me see. I am testing this out. All right. So what you have in front of you now is the whiteboard, the Zoom whiteboard application, which I've never used before, but here we go. So here's our alternative use exercise. What I would like us to do, let's go with the side that says ping pong balls. Let's go 30 to 45 seconds. What is one use for a ping pong ball that's not obviously using it as a ping pong ball? A dog toy, a ball cock in a cistern, hang in the ground. Oh, so your car doesn't, that's what I use a tennis ball for. I don't know who wrote that. A cat toy, beer pong, a craft item, fancy dress for the US. That's a costume, like for a costume party. Practice putting. Yes, earrings, baking a snowman, faking eggs in an Easter basket. Yes, Christmas ornaments, all the different things that we can do with ping pong ball. All right, now let's flip it. Let's go over to a brick, a doorstop, a weapon. Okay, yes, there is that. A garden edging. Yes, sidewalk edging, a wheel blocker, a bookend, balancing a table. Yes. If you get enough of them, you can use it as a laptop stand, I suppose, right? A weight, building a fire pit. Excellent. Weighing down rat traps. I would not in a million years have thought about that. A pumice stone for calloused feet. Vandalism. Oh, yeah, there's one way to get back at that noisy neighbor, right? What do those exercises tell us? What purpose does this help us with or help you with?
I feel like one thing immediately comes to mind, but then when you start seeing other answers come in, it boosts your thinking.
Right, because we can feed off of each other. So there's something to be said about trying to work your creative juices in a group setting, right? So you can better collaborate and bounce ideas off of each other.
I think it flexes your brain. It kind of like makes you go a little bit further and think, oh, what can we use it for? It's like trying to make your brain a little bit more elastic.
Yeah, I think so too. So what would happen if we made this a practice every day where you started off, let's go with the circles. So maybe instead of circles, you started with triangles and circles and rectangles and other shapes. And maybe it's not 25, maybe it's 15, just to sort of wake your brain up every morning.
A really interesting research on the benefit of doing creativity exercises like that. And they give us serotonin buzz that we have done something creative. But actually what we've done is we've limited ourselves by the frame that we've built around the activity. There's a really interesting book by Robert Cialdini from the influence and persuasions space, and he's come up with a really interesting 50 scientifically proven ways to be persuasive. And if you look at that talks about creativity in a different way. I also recommend the one that we spoke about in our book club as well, which is the book by Alf Rain, R-E-H-N, about creativity as well. There is an industry built around creativity, which is about Mexican food, as I talked about in learning before. We move the same things around again and again and again, when actually what we should be doing is putting all of the ingredients out and allowing people to put things together in their own way. So we limit ourselves by the nature of the activities we design.
It's about not really putting ourselves into a particular box. In instructional design, we have a tendency to say we have to do things this way. And then we branch creativity from that particular path or that particular area of expertise without looking at what's around us. Okay, so we're going to create this course and we're going to create a PowerPoint around this course. But what if you didn't start with PowerPoint? So it's like, okay, I'm going to be creative with my PowerPoint. But what would happen if you didn't use that at all?
I'd roll it back a step. I'd say, why are you creating a course? If you're not creating a course, then that's how we should be taking thinking back. We do things as kids, we don't do them as adults. And the reason being is because as adults, we fit into specific conventions. And there's a convention around instructional design, convention around workplace learning, etc. That what we do is we work to that convention, and that limits the thinking to within a certain space. Children haven't got that limit around the thinking.
Right.
So it could be much more creative around it. It's not about being childish, but it's thinking about what are the conventions that are limiting the way that we're working.
Absolutely, because I remember playing with Barbies when I was younger, and because now Barbie comes with all sorts of stuff. It sort of impedes your creative mind, doesn't it? Because now we've got all of these different things that we can use. You had to use the Kraft macaroni and cheese box as the bed because she fit perfectly on that. If we take away some of the constraints that are creativity imposters, take away those accessories and create your own. And now you're being creative.
The same thing applies to conversations as well. So if you're in a group with the same group of people every week, guess what? You'll establish conventions around the way that you as a group talk about stuff. What we rate and what we value, and the social values apply to creativity as well.
The same thing does apply to Legos, Heather. Absolutely. We see all those different boxes of Legos that tell you to build a helicopter or tell you to build a car, or they tell you to build this Star Wars thing. But now I see Legos actually going back to selling just straight Legos, which is how you only could buy them back in the day. We're a few minutes from the top of the hour. So we can go ahead and we can start giving away the books, which I'm looking forward to. All right, so let's see where we are at here. Let's go with our drum roll, please. JD. JD is one winner of the book. I will get that over to you. And who is the second one? Drum roll, please. Heather. Heather, you're the other lucky winner. So again, in the DM, if you will send me your mailing address, I will get those 2 books over to you. We are at the very top of our hour. So this was a lot of fun. This was a great conversation. And I think it really inspired me to go and think about doing some of the things that I do, maybe in a different way, or maybe just take some time to breathe, go outside, look at some flowers, or go play with the dogs. Wednesday, we have our next Learn Something New, which is with Mike Taylor, and he is showing us how to use Feedly. So if you remember from our productivity discussion last week, Feedly can really help you build your productivity skills. So I would encourage you and maybe some of your team members, to use this tool and to come to the Learn Something New Wednesday to help you curate information, to help you sort information, to help you find information. So when you think about curation, it's about finding and disseminating. So Feedly does all of these things for you in a very organized way. So I encourage everybody to sign on up. So thank you, everybody. As always, I appreciate everybody attending these, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.